My daughter Natalie came to visit me with a purple-blue bruise the size of a grapefruit on her left arm. We were supposed to have lunch together at my house, just the two of us the way we used to before she married Derek 5 years ago. She walked in wearing a long-sleeved blouse, even though it was 87 degrees outside that Tuesday afternoon. I'm 68 years old, and I've raised 3 children. I know when something is wrong. "Sweetheart, aren't you hot in that?" I asked, setting down the pitcher of sweet tea I'd made fresh that morning. "Oh, I'm fine, Mom." She gave me that smile. You know the one. The smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The smile that's holding back tears. The smile I'd seen on my own face in the mirror 40 years ago when her father, my first husband, used to come home drunk. "Take off that blouse and put on one of the cotton shirts I have in the guest room," I insisted. "You'll get heat stroke." "Mom, really, I'm Natalie Ann Morrison." I used her full name. Even at 34 years old, that still made her pause. "Take off the blouse." She hesitated, then slowly unbuttoned it. That's when I saw the bruise. Dark purple in the center, spreading out to yellow and green at the edges. Fresh. Maybe 2 days old. The shape was unmistakable. 4 finger marks on one side, a thumbprint on the other. A handprint. My stomach dropped. My hands started shaking so badly I had to set down the tea pitcher before I dropped it. What happened? I kept my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. She touched the bruise lightly and flinched. "I tripped yesterday, fell against the kitchen counter. You know how clumsy I am." That fake smile again. "Natalie." "Mom, please. That's not from a counter. I really did trip. Show me your other arm." She hesitated too long. I reached for her right sleeve and gently pushed it up. 2 smaller bruises, faded, maybe a week old. Then I noticed the faint marks on her neck, barely visible under her makeup. My baby girl. The little girl who used to dance in the living room, who won the science fair in 7th grade, who called me every Sunday without fail. That man had put his hands on her. "Go into the living room and sit down," I said quietly. "I need to make a phone call." "Mom, no, please don't. Sit down." I went into my bedroom and closed the door. My hands were still shaking as I dialed Derek's number. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Yeah?" His voice was casual, almost bored. "Derek, this is Evelyn, Natalie's mother." "I know who you are. What do you want?" I took a breath. "I want to know why my daughter has bruises all over her arms." There was a pause. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, that. Yeah, I hit her. So what? What are you going to do about it, old lady?" The words hit me like a physical blow. The casualness of it, the arrogance, the complete lack of shame. "Derek, listen, Evelyn, Natalie is my wife. What happens in my house is my business. You got that? Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." "Derek, if you ever—" "What? You'll do what? You're a 68-year-old woman living on Social Security. You think you can do something to me? I'm a lawyer, Evelyn. I know every judge in this county. So why don't you mind your own business and stay out of my marriage?" The line went dead. I sat on my bed in silence for a long moment, staring at my phone. A lawyer. He was right about that. Derek Morrison worked for one of the biggest firms in Richmond. Made over $300,000 a year. Had connections everywhere. Had defended men accused of much worse than hitting their wives. But what Derek didn't know, what neither he nor Natalie knew, was that I had been planning for something like this. Not this exactly, but something. You see, I had been watching Derek for 2 years now. Watching how he isolated Natalie from her friends. How he made her quit her job as a pediatric nurse. How he controlled every dollar she spent. How he spoke to her in public, sharp comments disguised as jokes, little put-downs that made her shrink into herself. I had seen it before, in my own life, in my own marriage to Natalie's father, before I finally found the courage to leave him when she was 6 years old. I had sworn then, as a young mother with 3 children and $57 in my purse, that I would never be powerless again. That I would never watch someone I loved suffer and do nothing. I made a call. Not to the police, not yet. Derek was right. He knew every judge, every cop in Richmond. A phone call to 911 would get Natalie a police report, and maybe a restraining order that Derek would violate the moment it was convenient. No, I called someone else. Ruth? It's Evelyn. I need your help. It's Natalie. Ruth Patterson had been my best friend for 43 years. We met in 1982 when we were both working night shifts at the hospital. She as a nurse, me in the cafeteria. We'd raised our children together, buried our husbands together, and built our retirement lives together. Ruth also happened to volunteer at the Domestic Violence Crisis Center. She knew every resource, every shelter, every lawyer who specialized in protection orders. "Tell me everything," Ruth said. I did. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Don't call the police yet. First, we document everything. Every bruise, every conversation, every threat. We build a case. Then we move. You understand?" "Yes." "How's Natalie doing right now?" "She's in my living room, scared, ashamed, making excuses for him." Classic response. "Evelyn, you need to be patient. You can't force her to leave. She has to make that choice herself. But what you can do is make sure she's safe and give her options." "What do I do right now?" "Take photos of every bruise, date stamp them, then just talk to her. Let her know you're there. Don't judge her for staying, just be there." I hung up and went back to the living room. Natalie was sitting on my old blue couch, crying silently. I sat next to her and put my arm around her shoulders. "Baby girl, I need to take some pictures, for documentation, just in case you ever decide you need them." "Mom, I can't leave him. I don't have any money, I don't have a job, and he said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure I never saw Sarah again." Sarah, my 7-year-old granddaughter, Derek's weapon of choice. "Let me take the pictures first. Then we'll talk." I spent the next 20 minutes photographing every bruise, every mark. Natalie sat there numbly, letting me document what that man had done to her. But what they didn't know, what Derek and even Natalie didn't know, was that I had already been planning for this. For 2 years, I had been quietly preparing, saving money, talking to lawyers, setting up a network of support, because I'm a 70-year-old woman who survived an abusive marriage, who raised 3 children alone, who built a life from nothing. And this time, I had resources. I had knowledge. I had friends. And I had one more card to play that Derek Morrison, with all his law degrees and connections, never saw coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand what I did next, you need to know how we got here. Let me take you back 2 years. To the day I first realized my son-in-law was not the man he pretended to be. 2 years earlier, it was a Sunday morning in October. I was doing what I always do on Sundays, meeting Ruth and 3 other friends from our morning walking group at Bird Park. We walked 3 miles every morning at 7 a.m., rain or shine, and had been doing it for 6 years since I retired from my job at the hospital cafeteria. That particular morning, Natalie had called me at 6:30. Which was unusual because she knew I was getting ready for my walk. "Mom, can I borrow $300? Just until Friday. Derek's paycheck got delayed and we need groceries." $300. Derek made more in a week than I made in a month from my Social Security and small pension. Something didn't add up. "Sweetheart, of course. But is everything okay? Derek just got that promotion, didn't he?" Yeah, everything's fine. His paycheck is coming through the wire and there's a delay. It'll be in his account Friday. I'll pay you back then, I promise." She sounded nervous, rushed. I heard Derek's voice in the background saying something I couldn't make out. "Okay, baby, I'll transfer it to your account this morning. Actually, could you bring cash to the house, maybe around noon?" Cash? Not a transfer, that was odd. "Sure, I'll come by after my walk." I hung up and stood there in my bedroom, staring at my phone. In my gut, something felt wrong, but I pushed the feeling down. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe Derek's paycheck really was delayed. I went on my walk and told the ladies about the call. Ruth frowned. $300. In cash? Why not just transfer it? I don't know. She said she needed it today. Evelyn, Ruth said carefully, has Natalie asked to borrow money before? I thought about it. Actually, yes. Last month she needed $500 for Sarah's school expenses, and in August she asked for $200 for car repairs. And did she pay you back? I stopped walking. She hadn't. Natalie had always been responsible with money. Before she married Derek, she had her own checking account, her own savings. She'd been so proud when she bought her first car with money she'd saved. No, I said slowly. She hasn't paid me back. Ruth and I looked at each other. Ruth had worked in the ER for 30 years. She'd seen the patterns. Just be observant today, Ruth said. When you go to their house, pay attention. At noon, I drove to Natalie and Derek's house in the West End. They'd bought it 3 years ago, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with a big yard for Sarah. Derek had insisted on buying it despite Natalie's protests that they couldn't afford the mortgage. I'm a lawyer, he'd said. We can afford whatever I say we can afford. I should have heard the warning bells then. Natalie answered the door. She looked thin, too thin. Her jeans hung loose on her hips, and she'd always been slender to begin with. Hey, Mom, thanks for coming. She glanced nervously over her shoulder. Are you eating enough, sweetheart? What? Oh yeah, I'm fine. Just been doing some extra exercise, trying to get back in shape after having Sarah. Sarah was 7 years old. This wasn't baby weight. I handed her the envelope with $300 in 20s. Here you go. Thanks, Mom. I'll pay you back Friday. Derek appeared in the hallway behind her. Evelyn, thanks for helping us out. Of course, families help each other. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, family. That's what you always say, right? Family should always help each other. There was something in his tone, something mocking. Derek, honey, I need to get back to cooking dinner, Natalie said quickly. Thanks again, Mom. She practically pushed me out the door. I walked back to my car feeling unsettled. Something was very wrong in that house. That night I called my son, Timothy. He was 40 years old, lived in North Carolina with his wife and 2 kids, and worked as a financial analyst. If anyone could figure out what was happening, it was Tim. Mom, it sounds like financial abuse, Tim said after I explained everything. He's controlling all their money. She has to ask him for permission to spend anything, right? I don't know, I think so. Has she mentioned having access to their bank accounts? I thought about it. No, she hadn't. Not once in the past 2 years. What should I do? Document everything. Every time she asks to borrow money, write it down. The date, the amount, what she said it was for. And Mom, stop giving her cash. If you give her money, transfer it directly to her personal account. If she doesn't have one, that tells you something right there. I started keeping a notebook. That night, I wrote, October 15th, Natalie borrowed $300 cash. Said Derek's paycheck was delayed. She looked thin and nervous. Derek was watching her. Didn't pay back previous loans, $500 po $200. Over the next 6 months, the requests kept coming. Always cash, always with an excuse. December 3rd, $450. Said the furnace broke. January 20th, $300. Said Sarah needed a school laptop. March 5th, $600. Said they had unexpected medical bills. I gave her the money every time, but I kept records. And I started paying closer attention when I visited their house. The signs were everywhere once I knew to look for them. Natalie stopped inviting her friends over. She stopped going to her book club. She stopped coming to our family dinners unless Derek came too, and when he came, he dominated every conversation. He made jokes about her cooking, her housekeeping, her weight. Natalie's always been a little scattered, haven't you, babe? He'd say with that smile. Good thing she has me to keep her organized. My daughter, who had graduated nursing school with honors, who had managed an entire pediatric ward, who could juggle 3 children's schedules and never miss a single activity, that daughter was scattered. One day in April, I came over unannounced. It was 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd brought over some tomato seedlings from my garden. Natalie looked panicked when she opened the door. "Mom, I wasn't expecting you." "I know, honey. I was in the neighborhood and thought you might want these for your garden." I gestured to the seedlings. "Oh, maybe another time?" "Can I come in for just a minute? I need to use your bathroom." She couldn't really say no to that. I went inside. The house was immaculate. Too immaculate. It looked like a museum, not a home where a 7-year-old child lived. "The house looks beautiful, sweetheart." "Thanks. Derek likes it clean." "Where's Sarah?" "School. She won't be home until 3:30. I used the bathroom, and on my way out, I noticed something. The master bedroom door was open. Inside, I could see a laptop on the dresser. The screen was on, showing what looked like a security camera feed. Multiple camera feeds. I looked closer. One feed showed the living room where Natalie and I were standing. Another showed the kitchen. Another showed the front door. Another showed the driveway. Derek was watching his own house, watching his own wife. My blood ran cold. "Natalie, honey, why do you have security cameras inside the house?" She followed my gaze and her face went pale. "Oh, those. Derek installed them last year. For security." "Inside the house?" "He says it's so we can check on Sarah when we're not home." But Sarah was always home with Natalie. Natalie didn't work. Natalie didn't go anywhere. These cameras weren't for watching Sarah. They were for watching Natalie. I left soon after, but I couldn't stop thinking about those cameras. That night, I called Ruth again. "He's monitoring her. Probably has an app on his phone. He can watch her every move, every minute of the day." "That's abuse, Evelyn. That's textbook domestic surveillance." "But she hasn't said anything. She's not asking for help." "She won't. Not yet. Abusers break down their victims slowly. They isolate them, control them, make them dependent. By the time the victim realizes they need help, they feel like they have no way out. So what do? You document. You stay present in her life. You let her know you're there. And when she's ready, if she's ready, you have everything prepared to help her get out safely. That's when I started my real preparations. I opened a separate savings account, my emergency fund, and started putting money in it every month. Not much. Just $50 here, $100 there, from my Social Security and the small pension I got from my 40 years working at the hospital. I researched domestic violence resources. I learned about protection orders and custody laws. I made an appointment with a lawyer, not someone Derek would know, but someone from a different firm, a woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in domestic violence cases. "I need to understand what my daughter's options are," I told Patricia in her office. "Hypothetically." Patricia listened carefully as I described the situation. "Hypothetically, your daughter is in what we call a coercive control situation. It's a pattern of behavior that's increasingly being recognized as domestic abuse. The financial control, the surveillance, the isolation, these are all warning signs." "What about my granddaughter?" "In Virginia, if there's evidence of domestic violence, the courts take it very seriously in custody cases. But the key word is evidence. Your daughter would need documentation. Police reports, medical records, photographs, witness statements." "What if he hasn't hit her yet?" Patricia gave me a sad look. "In most cases like this, if it hasn't happened yet, it will. The control usually escalates to violence eventually. The question is whether your daughter will ask for help before it gets to that point." I left Patricia's office with a folder full of information and a business card with her direct number. I put it all in a safe place, a lockbox I kept in my bedroom closet, where I'd been storing important documents for years. Over the next 18 months, I watched my daughter disappear into herself. She lost more weight. She stopped calling me on Sundays. Or when she did call, she was distracted, nervous, constantly cutting the conversation short. Sarah stopped coming for sleepovers at my house. "Derek thinks she should sleep in her own bed," Natalie explained. "I saw my granddaughter less and less. When I did see her, she was quiet, subdued. Not the bubbly little girl who used to sing and dance around my living room. The money requests kept coming. Every few weeks, Natalie needed cash for something. The amounts got bigger." By the summer, she was asking for $800, $1,000 at a time. I gave it to her, even though I knew the money wasn't going where she said it was going. I kept detailed records of everything: dates, amounts, conversations. I took notes after every phone call, every visit. I photographed text messages. My notebook grew thicker. My friends in the morning walking group knew what was happening. Ruth, of course, but also Barbara, a retired social worker, Linda, a former teacher, Patricia, yes, the same Patricia Chen, my lawyer who had joined our walking group after I met her. Small world. We called ourselves the Morning Regulars. But we were more than that. We were a network. 5 women in our 60s and 70s who had lived through enough to recognize trouble when we saw it, who had resources, connections, and most importantly, time. When this comes to a head, Patricia told me one morning as we walked our usual route around the park, you call me immediately, day or night. I don't care if it's 3 a.m, you call me. I promised I would. 3 months ago, things got worse. Natalie stopped asking me for money. She stopped calling at all. When I called her, she didn't answer. When I texted, her responses were short. Busy, talk later. I drove to her house twice. No one answered the door, even though I could see lights on inside and I knew they were home. Derek had cut off my access completely. I was frantic. I tried calling Timothy, but he was dealing with his own crisis. His wife had just been diagnosed with cancer and he was 3 states away. I couldn't burden him with this, too. I tried calling Derek directly. I'd like to see my granddaughter. Sarah's busy with school activities, maybe next month. Derek, I'm her grandmother. I have a right. You have no rights in my house, Evelyn. You want to see Sarah, you ask nicely, and maybe if you're polite, I'll consider it. He hung up on me. That's when I knew it had escalated beyond financial control. He was punishing Natalie by keeping me away, and he was using Sarah as leverage. I called Patricia that night. What can I do? Can I get grandparent visitation rights? It's difficult when the mother is still alive and married. The father has equal parental rights. Unless there's evidence of harm to the child, a court won't force visitation over the parent's objection. So I'm powerless. I didn't say that. I said the legal route is difficult. But there are other approaches, social approaches, community approaches. She was right. I couldn't force Derek legally, but I could make life uncomfortable for him. I started showing up at Sarah's school events, at their church, at the grocery store I knew Natalie shopped at. I wasn't stalking. I was just being present, being visible, being a witness. Derek couldn't stop me from attending a public school concert. He couldn't prevent me from sitting in a pew at church. He couldn't ban me from the grocery store, and every time I saw Natalie, I made eye contact. I smiled. I mouthed, "I love you." Even if we didn't speak, I wanted her to know I was there. Then came that Tuesday in August, the day Natalie showed up at my door with those bruises. The day Derek laughed at me and said, "Yeah, I hit her, what are you gonna do about it?" The day everything changed. After Derek hung up on me, after I called Ruth, after I documented Natalie's injuries with photographs, I sat my daughter down and asked her the hardest question I've ever had to ask. "Do you want to leave him?" She started crying. Really crying. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and painful and locked away for too long. "I don't know. I mean, yes, but, Mom, I can't. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I haven't worked in 4 years. And Sarah, oh God, Mom, Sarah, he said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure I never got custody. He said he'd tell the judge I'm an unfit mother. He'd say I'm mentally unstable. He'd, breathe, baby, just breathe." I held her while she cried. When she finally calmed down, I said, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. Can you do that?" She nodded. "I've been preparing for this. For 2 years. I have money saved, almost $7,000. I have a lawyer ready to help you. I have a folder full of information about shelters, support services, and protection orders. I have 2 years of documentation showing that Derek has been financially abusing you. And I have friends, A whole network of friends who are ready to help. She stared at me. You've been planning this for 2 years? I've been watching what he's been doing to you. I knew it would come to this eventually. Abusers always escalate. But, Mom, I can't just leave. Where would I go? To a shelter first. Patricia, my lawyer, says there's a good one 40 minutes from here. It's confidential. Derek won't be able to find you. Then we file for a protective order and temporary custody. Patricia says with these photographs and my documentation, we have a strong case. But he'll fight it. He'll hire the best lawyers. Let him. Natalie, listen to me. Your father was an abuser too. I left him when you were 6 years old. Do you remember that? She nodded slowly. I had 3 children, no job, $57, and a 1985 Honda Accord that barely ran. Your father was a machinist who made decent money. He threatened to take all of you away from me. He said I'd never make it on my own. Do you know what I did? You left anyway. I left anyway, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I survived. I raised you and your brothers. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I kept us fed and housed and together. And you know what happened to your father's custody threats? Nothing. Nothing, because when it came down to it, the court looked at the facts. They saw that he'd been arrested twice for drunk driving. They saw that he'd lost 3 jobs in 2 years. They saw that I'd been the one taking care of you children, working, keeping the household together. The judge gave me full custody and ordered him to pay child support, which he never did. But that's another story. I took Natalie's hands. Derek may be a lawyer with connections, but he's also an abuser who left visible marks on his wife, who installed surveillance cameras to monitor you, who has controlled every dollar you spend for 4 years, who has isolated you from your friends and family. A good lawyer can work with that. I'm scared, Mom. I know, baby, but being scared is better than being dead. Because that's where this is heading. You understand that, right? Men who hit their wives don't stop. They escalate. Next time, it might not be your arm. It might be your face, your ribs, your throat. She knew I was right. I could see it in her eyes. But she wasn't ready. Not yet. She needed time to process, to think, to gather her own courage. Stay here tonight, I said. Both of you, you and Sarah. I have the guest room. I'll pick Sarah up from school. You don't have to decide anything today. Just stay here and be safe for one night. Derek will be furious. Let him be furious. What's he going to do? Come to my house and make a scene? I'll call the police. I have photographs of what he did to you. Let him try to explain those to a cop. She thought about it, then nodded slowly. Okay. One night. That evening, I picked Sarah up from school. The teacher gave me a questioning look. I'd called ahead and gotten permission, explaining that Natalie was ill and had asked me to get Sarah. But she let my granddaughter come with me. In the car, Sarah was quiet for a while. Then she said, "Grandma, are you and Mommy mad at Daddy?" My heart broke. Why would you think that, sweetie? Because Daddy is mad at Mommy a lot, and he yells, and Mommy cries in the bathroom. 7 years old. She'd been watching all of it. No, honey, we're not mad at Daddy. Sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to work through. But you know what? You and Mommy are going to stay with me tonight. We're going to make pancakes for dinner and watch a movie. Does that sound good? She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. That night, after Sarah went to bed in my guest room, my phone started ringing. Derek. I didn't answer. He called 6 times. Then the texts started. Where is my wife? You have no right to keep her from me. Tell Natalie to call me now. This is kidnapping. I'll call the police. You're going to regret this, old woman. I showed the texts to Natalie. You see that? He's trying to control the situation, making threats. This is what he does. She read the messages, and I saw something change in her face. A hardening, a decision being made. Tomorrow, she said quietly. Tomorrow I want to talk to your lawyer. I called Patricia right then. It was 9:30 at night, but she'd told me to call. Any time. Evelyn? She's ready. Natalie's ready to leave him. Can we come to your office tomorrow? Absolutely. 10 a.m., bring all the documentation you have. And Evelyn, this is going to get ugly before it gets better. You know that, right? I know. Good. See you tomorrow. I hung up and looked at my daughter. She looked exhausted but determined. Thank you, Mom, she whispered. You don't need to thank me. This is what mothers do. But I was wrong about something. Natalie didn't wait until the next day to make her first move. That night, after I thought she'd gone to sleep, she got up and started going through her purse. She found her phone. Derek had bought it for her, of course, and probably monitored everything on it, and she did something I didn't expect. She took photographs of the texts Derek had sent me, of her bruises, of the notebook I'd kept documenting everything. She backed it all up to a cloud account Derek didn't know about, an old email address she'd had in college that he'd never thought to ask about. Then she wrote an email, to herself, detailing everything, every incident of control, every threat, every time he'd hurt her. She dated it, time-stamped it, and sent it. Documentation. My daughter, who Derek had called scattered and disorganized, was thinking like the intelligent, capable woman she'd always been. When she came back to the guest room, I was waiting in the hallway. Couldn't sleep? I asked. No, but Mom, I did something. I documented everything. I have it all backed up where he can't access it. I hugged her. That's my girl. The next morning, we went to Patricia's office. Sarah went to school. We didn't want to disrupt her routine more than necessary, and we didn't want Derek to know something was happening. Patricia's office was in a building downtown. Professional, but not ostentatious. When we walked in, Patricia greeted us warmly and led us to a conference room. Natalie, I'm so glad you're here. Tell me everything. For the next 2 hours, Natalie talked. Patricia took notes, asked questions, and periodically had us pause while she explained legal procedures and options. Okay, Patricia finally said. Here's what we're going to do. First, we file for a protective order. With these photographs and your testimony, I'm confident we'll get it. That will legally require Derek to stay away from you and have no contact. What about Sarah? We'll also file for emergency custody. You're the primary caregiver. You've been a stay-at-home mother for 4 years. Derek works long hours. The fact that there's documented domestic violence gives us a strong case for temporary custody while the divorce is pending. Divorce. Natalie said the word like it was foreign. Yes, you can't get a protective order and stay married to someone indefinitely. If you're going to leave, you need to leave completely. File for divorce, fight for custody, fight for financial support. You've been out of the workforce for 4 years because of him. He has an obligation to support you while you get back on your feet. He'll never agree to that. He doesn't have to agree. The court will decide. Natalie, Virginia law is actually pretty favorable for situations like yours. We have something called spousal support. Given that you gave up your career to raise his child and keep his house, and given that he makes $300,000 a year, you're entitled to financial support. I watched my daughter's face as Patricia explained the law. She was starting to realize that she wasn't as powerless as Derek had made her believe. When do we start? Natalie asked. Today. I'm going to draft the protective order petition right now. You'll need to go to the courthouse this afternoon and file it. There will be a hearing, probably within 10 days. At that hearing, you'll testify about the abuse. Bring the photographs. I'll be there with you. What about in the meantime? Where do I stay? Patricia looked at me, then back at Natalie. That's up to you. You can go to a shelter. They're confidential and secure, or you can stay with your mother. The risk with staying with your mother is that Derek knows where she lives. I'm not afraid of him, I said. Let him try to show up at my house. I'll call the police immediately. Patricia nodded. Okay. But Natalie, you need to understand something. When you file this protective order, you're declaring war. Derek will retaliate. He'll try to intimidate you. He'll try to use Sarah against you. He'll hire lawyers and fight dirty. You need to be prepared for that. I'm tired of being afraid, Natalie said quietly. I'm tired of walking on eggshells in my own house. I'm tired of asking permission to buy groceries. I'm tired of sleeping next to someone who hurts me and tells me it's my fault. Good, because you're going to need that anger to get through this. We spent the rest of the morning preparing. Patricia drafted documents while Natalie and I called my son Timothy. He was at the hospital with his wife, who was undergoing chemotherapy, but he took the call. "Mom, what's wrong?" I told him everything. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "I'm coming home," he said. "Tim, no, your wife needs you. We have this under control." "Mom, that bastard hit my sister. I'm coming home. I'll be there tomorrow." Timothy had always been protective of his little sister. When they were kids, he'd gotten suspended from school twice for fighting boys who picked on Natalie. Some things never change. "Okay," I said. "But Tim? This is going to be a long fight. Weeks, maybe months. You can't stay that whole time." "I'll stay as long as it takes. Natalie, you hear me? You're my sister. You're family. We don't let family get hurt." Natalie started crying again. But this time, they were different tears. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or the realization that she wasn't alone. That afternoon, we went to the courthouse. It was an intimidating building, all marble and security checkpoints. But Patricia walked us through every step. We filed the protective order petition. The clerk gave us a hearing date, 9 days away. 9 days? Natalie said nervously. "That's a long time." "You'll be safe," Patricia assured her. "You're staying with your mother. Derek doesn't have legal grounds to come to her house. If he shows up, you call the police. If he contacts you, you document it. Every text, every call, every email. It all builds your case." We left the courthouse and went back to my house. Natalie picked Sarah up from school as usual. We didn't want to alarm the child by changing her routine too much. That evening, Derek called. I answered. "Where is my wife?" His voice was cold, controlled, more frightening than if he'd been yelling. "Natalie is safe. She's staying with me. Put her on the phone. Now." "No." "Evelyn, I'm warning you. You're interfering in my marriage. You have no legal right to keep my wife from me." "Actually, Derek, Natalie is an adult. She can stay wherever she chooses, and she chooses to stay here." "Fine, then tell her that if she's not home by tomorrow morning, I'm filing for custody of Sarah. I'll tell the judge she's abandoned her child and her home. Derek, you should know that we filed for a protective order today. There's going to be a hearing next week. Natalie has photographs of what you did to her. She has documentation. And she has a very good lawyer." There was a long silence. "You have no idea what you've done," he said quietly. "No idea." Then he hung up. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every car that drove past my house made me look out the window. I kept my phone next to my bed, 911 pre-dialed, ready to hit the call button if I heard anything unusual. But nothing happened. The next morning, Timothy arrived. He pulled into my driveway at 6 a.m., having driven through the night from North Carolina. When Natalie saw her big brother, she collapsed in his arms and sobbed. He held her and whispered, "I've got you. I've got you." We all sat around my kitchen table, me, Natalie, Timothy, and had coffee while Sarah ate breakfast and watched cartoons in the living room, oblivious to the storm brewing around her. "Okay," Timothy said. "What's the plan?" Patricia had outlined everything yesterday. File the protective order. Done. Wait for the hearing. In the meantime, start gathering more evidence. Document everything. Prepare for the custody fight. Start the divorce process. "I need to go back to the house," Natalie said, "to get our things, mine and Sarah's, clothes, important documents, her stuffed animals." "Not alone," Timothy said immediately. "I'll go with you." "Derek might be there." "Good. I'd like to have a word with him." "Tim," I started. "I'm not going to hit him, Mom. I'm not stupid. But I'm going to make sure Natalie is safe while she gets her things. And I'm going to let Derek know that she's not alone anymore. That she has family backing her up." We drove to Natalie's house, me, Timothy, and Natalie. We left Sarah with Ruth, who'd agreed to watch her for a few hours. Derek's car was in the driveway. My stomach clenched. "Maybe this is a bad idea," Natalie said. "It's your house, too," Timothy said. "You have every right to be here. Come on." We walked up to the front door. Natalie still had her key, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely get it in the lock. Timothy took it from her and opened the door. Derek was sitting in the living room, waiting. Well, well. The cavalry arrives. He looked at Timothy. I don't believe we've met. I'm Derek Morrison, Natalie's husband. I know who you are, Timothy said coldly. I'm her brother. We're here so she can get her things. Her things? Derek laughed. Everything in this house is mine. I paid for it. The furniture, the clothes, everything. Natalie doesn't own anything. Actually, I said, stepping forward, in Virginia, marital property is divided equitably in a divorce. That means Natalie has a claim to half of everything. Derek's smile faded. Oh, so now you're a lawyer too, Evelyn? No, but my lawyer explained it to me. Now we're going upstairs to pack some clothes for Natalie and Sarah. You can either stay down here peacefully or you can try to interfere and I'll call the police. Call them. I'd love to explain to the police how you're helping my wife kidnap my daughter. Kidnap? Timothy stepped toward Derek. You laid hands on your wife. You think any cop is going to side with you? Derek stood up. He was taller than Timothy by a few inches. Get out of my house. It's Natalie's house, too. She abandoned it. She abandoned me. She can't just come back and take whatever she wants. Watch me, Natalie said quietly. She walked past both of them and went upstairs. I followed her. Timothy stayed in the living room, keeping himself between Derek and the stairs. In the bedroom, Natalie moved quickly, pulling clothes out of drawers, grabbing Sarah's favorite stuffed rabbit, her own jewelry box, important papers from the filing cabinet. Check his desk, I whispered. Get copies of financial documents, bank statements, tax returns, anything that shows income and assets. She went into Derek's office, he had a whole room just for his work, and started photographing documents with her phone. Bank statements showing his salary, investment accounts I didn't even know they had, a 401k statement showing over $400,000 saved. Derek was wealthier than I'd realized. This was going to be a much bigger fight than I thought. Downstairs I could hear voices rising. Derek and Timothy were arguing. We need to go, I said. We grabbed everything we could carry and headed downstairs. In the living room, Derek and Timothy were facing off like two rams about to charge. Let's go, I said. Now. Timothy backed toward the door, keeping his eyes on Derek. We all walked out together. As we reached my car, Derek came out onto the porch. Natalie, he shouted, you can't do this. You're my wife. Sarah is my daughter. You can't take her from me. Neighbors were starting to look out their windows. Perfect. More witnesses. Natalie stopped and turned around. She looked at Derek, really looked at him for the first time in probably years. I'm not your wife, she said clearly. Not anymore. I'm done, Derek. I'm done being afraid. I'm done being controlled. I'm done. We got in the car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Derek standing on the porch watching us go. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Patricia met with us 3 more times, reviewing testimony, preparing documents, coaching Natalie on what to expect in court. Timothy stayed with us the whole time. His wife was stable. The chemotherapy was going as well as could be expected, and he'd taken family leave from work. He appointed himself our security detail, walking Sarah to school each morning, picking her up each afternoon, staying up late to make sure no one approached the house. Derek didn't try to visit, but the texts and calls kept coming. Some pleading, some threatening, all of them trying to regain control. Please come home. I love you. I'm sorry. You're destroying our family. If you go through with this, I'll make sure you never see Sarah again. I'll tell everyone what you are. An unfit mother, mentally unstable. My lawyers are already preparing custody papers. You'll lose everything. Natalie saved every message, every single one. The morning of the hearing, I woke up at 5 a.m. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, watching the sun come up, thinking about all the steps that had led us here. 2 years of planning, 2 years of saving money, gathering information, building a network. All for this moment. At 8:30, we drove to the courthouse. Patricia met us outside. "Ready?" she asked Natalie. My daughter took a deep breath. "Ready!" Inside, the hearing room was smaller than I expected. Just a judge's bench, a witness stand, and a few rows of seats. Derek was already there with his lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd never lost a case in his life. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Judge Alexandra Robertson. Patricia had told us this was good. Judge Robertson had a reputation for taking domestic violence cases seriously. "All rise," the bailiff said. The hearing began. Patricia presented our case first. She showed the photographs of Natalie's bruises. She had Natalie testify about the years of financial control, the surveillance cameras, the isolation from friends and family. Derek's lawyer tried to discredit her. "Mrs. Morrison, isn't it true that you agreed to be a stay-at-home mother, that your husband supported you financially for 4 years?" "Yes, but..." "And isn't it true that you never complained about this arrangement until now?" "I complained many times. He wouldn't listen." "Do you have any proof of these alleged complaints?" Natalie hesitated. She didn't have recordings, didn't have witnesses. It had just been the two of them in that house. But then Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to present additional evidence. Mrs. Morrison's mother, Evelyn Foster, has been documenting the financial control for 2 years. She has records of repeated loans made to Mrs. Morrison, loans that were necessary because Mr. Morrison controlled all marital finances and gave his wife no access to bank accounts." Patricia handed the judge my notebook. 2 years of entries, dates, amounts, conversations. The judge read through it carefully. "Mr. Morrison, can you explain why your wife, a former registered nurse, had to borrow money repeatedly from her mother for basic household expenses?" Derek's lawyer started to answer, but the judge cut him off. "I asked Mr. Morrison, not you." Derek stood. "Your Honor, I provided everything my wife and daughter needed. If Natalie wanted extra money for personal spending, that was her choice to ask her mother." "Personal spending? Let's see." The judge looked at the notebook. "Groceries, school supplies, medical bills. Mr. Morrison, these aren't personal luxuries. These are basic household needs. Why didn't your wife have access to marital funds for these expenses?" "She did. She could ask me anytime she needed something." "Ask you? So you controlled when and how she could spend money?" Derek's lawyer jumped in. "Your Honor, many married couples have arrangements where one spouse manages the finances. I'm well aware of how marriages work, Counselor. What concerns me is the pattern of control combined with these photographs of physical abuse." She looked at the pictures again, the bruises on Natalie's arms, the faded marks on her neck. "Mr. Morrison, did you strike your wife?" Derek hesitated. Then, "It was one time. Things got heated. I grabbed her arm. I didn't mean to leave a mark." "You grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises that lasted for days. It was an accident, a moment of frustration. It never happened before and it won't happen again." But I knew what the judge knew. Men who hit their wives always say it was one time, always say it won't happen again, until it does. Judge Robertson made her decision quickly. "I'm granting the protective order. Mr. Morrison, you are to stay at least 100 feet from Mrs. Morrison at all times. No contact except through lawyers regarding custody arrangements. As for emergency custody, I'm granting Mrs. Morrison temporary primary custody of the minor child Sarah Morrison, with Mr. Morrison to have supervised visitation once per week pending a full custody hearing." Derek shot to his feet. "Your Honor, that's not... My daughter needs her father." "Your daughter needs a safe environment, Mr. Morrison, and until I'm convinced that you can control your temper, supervised visitation is what you get. This court is adjourned." The gavel came down. We'd won. Natalie started crying. Patricia hugged her. Timothy put his arm around both of them. I stood there feeling like my legs might give out from relief. Derek stormed out of the courtroom, his lawyer hurrying after him. Outside, Patricia said, This is just the first step. He'll fight the custody arrangement. The divorce is going to take months. But Natalie, you have a protective order. You have temporary custody. You have legal standing now. Thank you, Natalie whispered. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, thank your mother. She's the one who prepared for this for 2 years. Natalie looked at me. Mom, I didn't know. All that time you were planning, I was protecting you. Because that's what mothers do. We went back to my house and celebrated quietly. Ruth came over with dinner, her famous pot roast. My other friends from the walking group stopped by with flowers and encouragement. Sarah played in the backyard, still mostly unaware of what was happening. That night, after everyone left, after Sarah was asleep, Natalie and I sat on my back porch with tea. What happens now? She asked. Now you rebuild, you file for divorce, you fight for a fair custody arrangement, you find a job. Patricia says she can connect you with hospitals that are hiring nurses. You start your life over. I'm scared, Mom. I know, but you're also free. Really think about that. You're free. You don't have to ask permission to go to the grocery store. You don't have to account for every dollar. You don't have to worry about cameras watching your every move. You're free. She smiled a little. I am, aren't I? And you're strong. You survived 4 years of abuse. You found the courage to leave. That takes incredible strength. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the crickets. Mom? Natalie said eventually. Yes, honey? When you left Dad, when I was 6, was it this hard? Harder. I had less resources, 3 children, no support system. But I made it. And you'll make it too. Because you're my daughter. And foster women, we're survivors. She reached over and took my hand. Thank you. For everything. For never giving up on me. Never. Not ever. That was 4 months ago. Today Natalie has her own apartment. A small 2-bedroom place 10 minutes from my house. She got her nursing license reinstated and started working at Children's Hospital 3 days a week. Sarah is in therapy to help her process everything, and she's doing better than anyone expected. The divorce is still pending. Derek fought every step. Fought the custody arrangement, fought the spousal support, fought the division of assets. But Patricia is relentless, and the documentation we have is overwhelming. Last week there was a custody hearing. Derek's lawyer tried to paint Natalie as an unfit mother who'd abandoned her home and alienated Sarah from her father. But Sarah's therapist testified about the anxiety Sarah showed when talking about her father, about the fears she'd expressed, about the relief she showed living in a calmer environment. The judge, the same Judge Robertson, wasn't impressed with Derek's arguments. Mr. Morrison, I've reviewed the evidence. I've read the reports. I've listened to testimony. What I see is a pattern of control and abuse that you've tried to excuse and minimize at every turn. Mrs. Morrison has demonstrated that she can provide a stable, safe home for Sarah. You have not. She ruled in Natalie's favor. Primary custody to Natalie. Derek gets every other weekend, supervised for the next 6 months. Derek has 60 days to move out of the marital home, which will be sold with proceeds divided equally. He has to pay Natalie $4,000 per month in temporary spousal support while the divorce is pending, and $1,500 per month in child support. His lawyer filed an appeal, of course, but Patricia says it won't change anything. The evidence is too strong. This morning I met Natalie at the park, the same park where I walk every day with my friends. She brought Sarah, and we all walked the trail together. Sarah ran ahead, chasing butterflies, laughing. She seems happy, I said. She is, we both are. I mean, it's hard, working full-time, taking care of her, dealing with all the legal stuff. But Mom, I can breathe. For the first time in 5 years, I can breathe. That's everything. And Mom, I started saving money, in my own account. It's only $300 so far, but it's mine. I earned it. I control it. I hugged her. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done this without you, without your planning, your support, your everything. Yes, you could have. Maybe not as smoothly, maybe not as quickly, but you would have found your way out eventually. Because you're strong, Natalie. You always have been. We walked in silence for a while, watching Sarah play. "Do you ever worry about him?" Natalie asked. "About what he might do?" "Sometimes, but less now. He's lost control, and that's what he can't stand. But he's also a lawyer who knows that violating a protective order means jail time. He's not going to risk his career." "I hope you're right." "I am, and even if I'm not, you're not alone anymore. You have me, your brother Patricia, all our friends. You have a whole network of people who will stand with you." She smiled. "Thank you, Mom, for being that 70-year-old woman with one more card to play." 68, I corrected. "I'm only 68. We both laughed. So here I am, 4 months later, telling you this story, telling you about how my daughter came to me bruised, how her husband dared to challenge me, how I made a call that changed everything. People ask me sometimes, "Weren't you scared, taking on a lawyer with money and connections?" Of course I was scared, but I was more determined than I was scared, because this is what they don't tell you about getting older. Society treats us like we're invisible, like we're powerless, like we should just sit quietly and let the world happen around us. But we're not powerless. We have experience, we have wisdom, we have resources they don't expect, and most importantly, we have nothing left to lose. I'm 68 years old. I survived an abusive marriage. I raised 3 children alone. I worked for 40 years. I saved what I could, learned what I needed, and built a life on my own terms. When Derek Morrison, with his law degree and his 6-figure salary and his connections, told me I was just an old lady on Social Security who couldn't do anything to stop him, he made a critical mistake. He underestimated me. They always underestimate us. Elderly women, we're supposed to be sweet grandmas who bake cookies and stay out of the way. We're not supposed to keep detailed records for 2 years. We're not supposed to hire lawyers and file protective orders. We're not supposed to fight back. But we do. And we win. Would you have forgiven him? If Derek had apologized, if he'd promised to change, if he'd begged Natalie to come back, would you have given him another chance? Or would you have stood your ground like I did? Sometimes I wonder if younger people understand what it's like to be treated as invisible in your own family, to watch your child suffer and be told you have no right to interfere, to be dismissed because of your age, your income, your gender. But I'll tell you something. Being underestimated is a weapon. Because while they're dismissing you as harmless, you're planning, you're documenting, you're building your case, and when the time comes, you're ready. My daughter is free now. My granddaughter is safe. And Derek Morrison learned that you should never, ever underestimate a 70-year-old woman, 68-year-old woman, who has decided she's had enough. Because we may be old, but we're not powerless, and we never forget.